Hello friend, welcome back to my channel. God bless you. For the news update, please subscribe the channel and press the bell icon. It's always such a lovely moment to pack up to leave the hospital and go home. The anticipation and excitement of bringing this child home never goes away. This time, the Duggar family is in the news for a different reason than a big family get-together or a happy announcement. Rather, it is due to a terrifying health crisis that happened to Jessa Duggar, Seewald's newborn child. According to reports, shortly after birth, Jessa's most recent child was taken to the critical care unit (ICU), causing admirers all over the world to express their concern, pray, and react emotionally. Discussions concerning the difficulties of parenthood, the transience of life, and the steadfast faith that has characterized the Duggar family for years have been sparked by the story's rapid social media propagation. For Jessa and her husband Ben Seewald, what started out as an exhilarating new chapter became a nerve-wracking experience. Spurgeon, Henry, Ivy, and Fern are the couple's first 4 children, and they were excitedly awaiting the birth of their 5th sweetheart. However, issues developed within hours of the delivery that necessitated immediate medical attention. The newborn had unanticipated respiratory difficulties after birth, which is a typical but extremely disturbing complication, according to family members. According to reports, medical personnel moved swiftly, sending the infant to the neonatal intensive care unit for specialist treatment. This emergency was a difficult time for Jessa and Ben, who have always been candid about their parenting experiences and the difficulties of parenthood. Reminder that no pregnancy or birth is risk-free, even for experienced women. Jessa herself has experienced difficult pregnancies and devastating losses in the past. She talked about having a miscarriage in 2021, and her fans were incredibly supportive as she shared her sadness. This most recent pregnancy was both a blessing and a source of dread because of that loss. As Michelle chronicled her prenatal journey, many Duggar fans eagerly awaited updates on the health of her unborn child. When word leaked out that the baby was taken to the intensive care unit, feelings leaped to the surface. Online forums and Instagram pages were inundated with sincere prayers from supporters who hoped for the baby's recovery and asked for strength for Jessa and Ben. The Duggar family's identity has always been rooted in their faith. Additionally, prayer becomes a potent unifying factor during times of distress. Supporters from all across the world have posted prayers for the Seewald family on social media. Jessa, keep going. This is under God's control and might. Your kid will soon be well enough to be brought home. To spread encouragement, some fans even set up online prayer circles with hashtags like #PPrayersForJessa and #Seewaldabe. These times of group prayer bring back memories of earlier health problems the Duggar family has experienced, like Josie Duggar's early birth years ago, for many devoted fans. Despite disputes, the Duggar lineage has always told a story of fortitude through faith. Additionally, this situation has once again brought attention to how their supporters have a strong emotional connection to their hardships. It's crucial to consider Jessa and Ben's parenting journey in order to appreciate the significance of this moment. Following their 2014 marriage, the couple swiftly established a family based on love, faith, and a sense of direction. Every one of their kids has been a source of happiness and difficulties. Early developmental difficulties in their second child, Henry, led Jessa to be open about seeking treatment and medical guidance. Additionally, Ivy's birth was difficult, so Jessa shared her freely discussed the rehabilitation process with fans. Following Jessa's heartbreaking miscarriage, their youngest daughter, Fern, came into the world as a healing sign. Every child has brought a different tale for Jessa, and she hasn't held back from telling the world about the highs and lows of parenting. Now that her 5th child is in the intensive care unit, Jessa is dealing with yet another emotional ordeal. In contrast to earlier difficulties, this one goes straight to the core of every parent's anxiety and doubt regarding the health of their newborn. Fans immediately made analogies because the Duggar family has previously experienced health issues. The most well-known instance is the 2009 premature birth of Josie Duggar, Jim Bob, and Michelle's youngest child at barely 25 weeks. Viewers were engrossed in Jessa's survival because her precarious early days in the NICU were chronicled on 19 children so far. Nowadays, A lot of admirers draw comparisons between Jessa's newborn's present fight and Josh's story. Some people find optimism in these analogies because, despite her difficult beginning, Josie finally developed into a robust and healthy adolescent. Others are concerned, recalling the family's protracted period of uncertainty. Every issue, whether happy or sad, feels personal to the Duggars fanbase because of their lengthy public presence. The fact that Jessa's newborn was taken to the intensive care unit felt like just another chapter in a saga that has been attentively followed by people who have observed the family for decades. Even so, Jessa has not yet made a thorough declaration. The emotional toll this event has placed on her is easy to imagine in relation to the emergency. Jessa, who is well known for her calm manner and strong religious beliefs, has frequently served as a source of support for both her siblings and her admirers. However, it would be devastating for any mother to witness her infant in anguish. She may someday reshare her journey, given her previous candor regarding miscarriage, postpartum recuperation, and the difficulties of juggling parenting with personal wellness. But for the time being, fans are maintaining your steadfast support, but also honoring her privacy. Ben has also always said how much he loves his family. The father and husband, who frequently shows up in family videos and pictures reading scripture or playing with the kids, has probably relied a lot on his religion during this difficult time. Believing that God has a plan could be the fulcrum that keeps Ben and Jessa afloat during these uncertain times. Although most fans have replied with prayers and sympathy, some social media users have conjectured about the events leading up to the ICU rush. Some wondered if Jessa's history of difficult pregnancies could be connected to the emergency, while others questioned whether it was caused by labor issues. Others, on the other hand, disputed the conjecture and advocated for empathy rather than curiosity. The Duggars' public persona has always been divisive, with detractors frequently saying, "This isn't the time for gossip. It's a time for prayer and support." Examining their decisions closely, moments like these, however, have a way of bridging gaps by reminding even the most critical people that, at its core, this is about a mother, father, and a helpless newborn battling for survival and health. For a lot of fans, Jessa's predicament is a sobering reminder of how fleeting life is. It has rekindled discussions on the unpredictable nature of childbirth, the fortitude of crisis-affected families, and the need of social assistance. Although there are still disputes about some of the Duggar families, members has consistently highlighted faith as the foundation of fortitude. Jessa tells her experience in the hopes of encouraging other mothers who have comparable challenges, and she believes that her ICU fear may ultimately turn into another example of perseverance. If history is any guide, Jessa might one day reflect on this instance with both appreciation and sorrow, viewing it as a component of a larger spiritual and maternal journey. What will happen to Jessa and her child next? As of this report's publication, there have been The newborn's condition has been officially updated by the medical community. As supporters hold on to every tiny hint of development, the lack of information has only increased anxiety and optimism. Long-term monitoring and specialist care may be required if the infant stays in the intensive care unit. But a lot of newborns who start out in intensive care units end up doing well, especially with the kind of prayer and devotion that the Seewald family is currently receiving. The upcoming days and weeks are probably going to be busy for Jessa and Ben. Includes highs and lows in emotions. It's always a life-altering experience to bring a newborn home, but it's even more precious after an intensive care unit stay. The way the larger Duggar fan base has come together is arguably one of the most encouraging parts of this circumstance. Thousands of people have joined together in prayer and support despite their many backgrounds, beliefs, and perspectives on the family. Moments like this demonstrated the profound empathy people may have for one another in a world that is frequently split by criticism and disagreement. One more. Heartfelt wishes for the baby's recovery have been sent by people who may not share the Duggars' ideals. The strong connection between public leaders and their viewers is demonstrated by this groundswell of support. For decades, supporters have accompanied the Duggars on their path, so when a crisis arises, the bond feels quite intimate. The story is still developing, and Jessa's newborn is still in the intensive care unit. Whether it turns into a story of a remarkable comeback, an example of perseverance, or time will tell, but it's a heartbreaking reminder of how fleeting life is. It is evident that Ben and Jessa are not alone. They have a large network of supporters, their family, and their faith standing by them during every uncertain time. Surprises, conjecture, and well-planned revelations have long been a part of the Duggar family's narrative, which keeps viewers interested. One of the most well-known daughters from the renowned Duggar family, Jessa Duggar Seewald, and her husband, Ben Seewald, have recently been able to draw in fans in a manner reminiscent of the early years of the family's TLC fame. In order to prolong the excitement following the birth of their fifth child, Jessa and Ben released not one, not two, but 4 different YouTube videos chronicling the baby's arrival before revealing his name. As planned, the tactic kept viewers wondering, guessing, and theorizing as each new video added a new piece to the puzzle without supplying the one detail that everyone had been most looking forward to. One of the most talked about topics surrounding the Duggar orbit in recent months is the narrative of how the Seewalds handled this milestone, now that the name has been made public. The strategy is not surprise to anyone who has followed Jessa's path from her adolescent years with 19 children, and counting to her current life as a 30-something mother of 5. Jessa has always known how important it is to pace a story and tease elements to keep the audience interested. She learned to strike a mix between genuineness and fascination by growing up in front of cameras. She has also relied a lot on YouTube in her post-TLC life to keep in touch with her followers. This instinct was mirrored in the 4-part video series that followed the birth of her kid. It started with snippets of Jessa's labor and hospital stay, moved into Ben's position as a loving father and husband, featured endearing emotions from the couple's older kids when they first met their brother, and ended with tearful thoughts on family life. The unsolved question of the baby's name kept viewers coming back time and time again. Because names are never just names in Duggar culture, the tactic worked. They serve as symbols of family identity, tradition, and faith. Like all of her siblings, Jessa was raised in a home where all of the children's names started with the letter J. Her parents, Jim, Bob, and Michelle, chose this as a symbolic way to unite their massive family. When Jessa had her own family, instead of continuing that exact pattern, Ben created their own route with distinctive names that frequently had symbolic or theological meaning. Their first child, Spurgeon, was named for Charles Spurgeon, a well-known preacher from the 19th century, whose sermons are still studied today. Henry, their second kid, had a more conventional yet timeless and powerful name, with a tribute to femininity and the natural world. Their first daughter, Ivy Jane, added a dash of antique charm, while their fourth daughter, Fern, youngster, with a name that was straightforward but emotive, leaned entirely into nature. Because of its rarity and distinctive sound, Sh's name had generated discussion among fans, and occasionally even controversy, particularly with regard to Spurgeon. There was a great deal of interest in what the couple would decide on for their fifth kid because of this background. Would they adopt the trend of names inspired by plants and nature, or would they revert to the custom of naming after holy figures? Online forums were a hive of speculation, ranging from traditional options like James or John to Old Testament names like Ezra or Gideon. Some thought that the couple might choose someone like Wesley or Calvin to carry on the preacher motif after Spurgeon. Others feared that they would surprise everyone by adopting a name that would indicate their departure from their heritage, and something unusual and modern. As each YouTube video offered close-up views of the Seewald family, while omitting the solution, the rumors spread for weeks. Lastly, in the latest episode of the show, Jessa and Ben disclosed the name of their son, George Augustine Seewald. The news was made at the conclusion of a video that was full of touching moments, and as soon as the words were said, the fan base exploded. George's selection was accompanied by a feeling of history, stability, and dignity, a name that conjures up ideas of rulers and monarchs. George is enduring and well-known throughout the world. The middle name, Augustine, provided the kind of theological depth that Ben has always found appealing, alluding to one of the most significant theologians in Christian history, Saint Augustine of Hippo. Fans who had hoped for something profoundly meaningful, yet approachable, were pleased with the name's blend of strength and spirituality. As is typically the case with the Duggar family, however, the name received a resoundingly enthusiastic reception. There were those who disagreed. Some admirers thought George Augustine was a more popular pick than After years of criticism regarding their previous choices, Spurgeon pondered whether the Seewalds had purposefully selected something less divisive. Some commended the couple for naming their baby Gravitas, a name that would carry gravitas throughout his life without being so out of the ordinary as to be problematic. Discussions over whether the Seewalds had found a new balance in their naming style, one that leaned toward classic appeal while still honoring their religious heritage, began on social media. Convictions. The significance of this choice for Jessa and Ben transcended individual taste. It was an opportunity to demonstrate to their fans that they take every facet of parenting seriously. One of the Duggar daughters most frequently linked to motherhood and housework, Jessa, seized the chance to offer insights into her own thinking. She described how the pair had spent months debating possible choices, considering how the name would work with their other names as well as its significance. Kids. They wanted to give their new baby a distinctive character, while also creating a unified sound that felt like it belonged in the family lineup. The suspense was spread out over so many videos in part because of that meticulous preparation. They wanted to emphasize that naming a child is a serious affair, not only to keep people entertained, though it was undoubtedly a goal. It's also critical to consider Seewald's YouTube strategy in its larger perspective. Many of the siblings have had to find their own ways to stay in the public eye since TLC's Counting On was cancelled in the wake of Josh Duggar's scandals. Jinger Duggar has rebranded herself as a California-based mother and distanced herself from fundamentalism in her memoir. In her own book, Jill Duggar Dillard has opened up about the unpleasant parts of living under Jim Bob's authority. Others have virtually disappeared from the spotlight, but Jessa has mapped out a middle ground route. In addition to maintaining her Duggar identity, she is developing her own direct platform by eschewing broadcast networks and utilizing YouTube as her preferred media. Her and Ben's ability to interact directly with their devoted audience is exemplified by the 4-part baby series, which allows them the close-knit family contact they desire while maintaining total creative control over the story. Additionally, the strategy has given Jessa something she didn't have in full during her time on TLC, the capacity to portray reality as it is. She can reveal her home's flaws, the hectic mornings with 4 kids underfoot, the untidy moments, and the joys and stress of parenthood on her channel. By doing this, she has capitalized on the current trend of relatable, authentic motherhood content. By arranging the baby's birth journey across several videos, she mimicked actual life, where events happen gradually instead of in well-cut TV arcs. Fans might have the excitement, the fatigue, the tears, and the laughter, almost as though they were members of the family. One thing is evident when the name reveal comes to an end. In a media landscape that hasn't always been friendly to the Duggar name, Jessa and Ben know how to stay relevant. In addition to increasing their YouTube following, the deliberate introduction of their son's name solidified their status as one of the Duggar couple's best equipped to handle life after TLC. Their capacity for equilibrium, digital media expertise, faith-based choices, and family narrative provide a model that other family members could or might not be able to follow. The Seewalds are embarking on their next chapter as a family of 7 with the official introduction of George Augustine. Fans are already excited to see how they will share the ongoing story of raising their children in a world that has changed significantly since Jessa was just one of Jim Bob and Michelle's many children on a popular reality show. As soon as when Duggar Seewald announced the birth of her newest kid, many fans assumed the baby's name would be announced relatively immediately. Birth announcements typically come with Instagram-ready captions, as is customary in a large portion of the celebrity and influencer culture. However, in typical Duggar fashion, Jessa and her husband Ben decided on a slower, more methodical, and more suspenseful course. Rather than giving their son a name right away after birth, they waited for a whole week. A decision that astonished and captivated their devoted supporters. The decision felt more deliberate, symbolic, and meaningful by the time of the official announcement than it could have been with a more casual one. The pair has always treated the process of naming with the weight of family tradition, personal religion, and lasting legacy in mind, and the delay not only increased speculation, but also demonstrated how important this process is to them. For anybody who have witnessed Jessa's transformation from a teenager The choice to wait represented both continuity and change as the daughter of the expansive Duggar family transitioned into a woman negotiating her own path as a wife and mother of 5. Change in that Jessa and Ben were freed from the strict rules that her parents had adhered to, and continuity in that the Duggar family has always placed a great deal of value on names, frequently selecting ones with biblical or personal meaning. Famously, Jim, Bob, and Michelle gave each of their 19 children a name, having names that start with the letter J, a common theme that helped the Duggar family become a household name on TV. However, from the start of their parenting experience, Jessa and Ben abandoned that strategy. Without having to follow any one initial or clear pattern, their children's names, Spurgeon, Henry, Ivy, Fern, and now their newest son, reflect a different worldview that strikes a balance between personality, history, and faith. When Jessa eventually disclosed the identity, George Augustine Seewald was selected for her son, and admirers soon realized why it had taken so long. The choice was elegant but heavy, straightforward but meaningful. There are decades of history behind the name George, which conjures up images of royalty as well as enduring power. It is traditional without being very distinctive, and it is familiar without being trendy. The addition of Augustine as a middle name added a deep spiritual meaning, alluding to Saint Augustine of Hippo, one of the most significant theologians in Christian history, whose works influenced Christian dogma and Western thinking for centuries. When combined, the names George Augustine convey a sense of respectability, steadiness, and depth of thought, qualities that Jessa and Ben obviously want their kid to possess. Although it was odd enough to provoke discussion, the week-long delay for the announcement was not unprecedented in the Duggar universe. Previously, a few of Jessa's siblings swiftly disclosed the names of their children, occasionally, within a few hours or days following delivery. Fans avidly discussed the intrigue and mystery that the week-long delay this time caused on fan forums and social media. There was much speculation. Some speculated that the Seewalds were having trouble coming up with a name, while others think they were waiting for the ideal idea, or maybe even trying to get as many views as possible on Jessa's YouTube channel. Regardless of the theories, the suspense increased every day until the revelation ultimately resolved the issue. In addition to being a modest progression, the name George Augustine blends in well with the larger fabric of the Seewald children's names. Perhaps their most audacious naming decision was Spurgeon, their first son, whose unique pronunciation and historical specificity shocked even some devoted followers. That choice, which was named for the famous preacher Charles Spurgeon, made it clear to the world that Jessa and Ben would not be afraid to make theologically driven yet unorthodox decisions. Henry, their second child, counterbalanced that, given a more conventional and well-known name, indicating that the couple valued the familiarity of things as well. While Fern leaned even further toward simplicity inspired by nature, their daughter Ivy exuded vintage charm and a botanical flair. These threads are now blended by George Augustine, who combines the spiritual with the classic in a way that seems both different enough to stand alone and harmonious with their other children. In the realm of celebrity baby naming, where celebrities frequently choose the Jessa and Ben's pick is notable for its restraint, which makes it both quirky and attention-grabbing. It's not the type of name that raises eyebrows or attracts ridicule for being ridiculous. It's also not so prevalent as to be forgettable. It is at the sweet spot of respectability that never goes out of style, the kind of name that one can wear with honor from childhood to maturity. This balance was immediately apparent to fans, who praised the couple for naming their son in a way that both honors tradition and has personal significance. The choice also reveals a lot about Jessa and Ben's current status in their quest to forge an identity outside from the Duggar family legacy. Every Duggar sibling has had to negotiate their relationship with public life in a different way since Counting On was cancelled due to the scandals involving Jessa's elder brother Josh. For example, Jill Duggar Dillard has been candid about her distance from her parents, and how she has looked for solace outside of their control. By producing a book that challenges elements of her upbringing and portrays herself as a more contemporary, self-reliant lady residing in Los Angeles, Jinger Duggar has started the process of rebranding. Others have virtually completely withdrawn from the spotlight, such as Jana. However, Jessa has made the decision to uphold the family's fundamental principles while simultaneously claiming her independence via YouTube's storytelling freedom. The name of her child makes it clear that a lot of her material demonstrates a delicate balance between tradition and independence, between the future she is committed to creating on her own terms and the roots she cannot leave behind. The name sparked an immediate and extensive fan response. Duggar news-related Reddit threads, YouTube comments, and Instagram posts. Fans analyzed every facet of the decision. A lot of people were relieved that the name was more widely used than Spurgeon, pointing out that George would probably encounter less raised eyebrows in daily interactions. Others focused on Augustine's theological significance, valuing the Seewald's continuous dedication to integrating their beliefs with the character of their family. As usual, a smaller group found fault with the week-long wait, claiming it was needless showmanship intended to garner views. However, even these critiques recognized the strategy's effectiveness, because Jessa and Ben made sure their announcement would create the most interest by postponing the disclosure. Since TLC cameras ceased airing, Jessa's slow, tense, and intimate narrative style has come to be recognized as her own. Rolling. She is now the director, producer, and narrator of her own family's story, whereas previously she was just one character in a reality show ensemble cast. In addition to being a personal choice, the week-long wait for a name served as a narrative technique that kept her audience interested in making guesses, demonstrated an awareness of the kind of digital media interaction that many influencers aim for, the capacity to transform a very intimate life event into content that is both authentic and well-paced, outside of the media. Nevertheless, the choice to hold off also reveals a deeper, more subdued aspect of the Seewald's family life philosophy. They made the decision to halt in a society that is accustomed to fast satisfaction and announcements. To be sure they gave their son the proper name, they decided to give themselves a week to live in the close-knit cocoon of newborn life, pray, think, and consider. This type of intentionality is becoming more and more uncommon, and many parents who are aware of the permanence of that choice and the weight of naming a kid. In addition to being a touching family milestone, the story of George Augustine's naming will probably be remembered as an illustration of how Jessa and Ben are still figuring things out on their own in a post-TLC world. Even though they are no longer constantly watched by television viewers, they are nevertheless fascinating people whose decisions about parenting, religion, or lifestyle continue to influence discussions among supporters and detractors. By holding off on revealing their son's name for a week, they crafted a narrative that was both private and public, grounded in the revered practice of naming and enhanced by the contemporary tools of social media storytelling. In the end, the name they decided on conveyed a lot about their ideals and aspirations for their boy, as well as their own developing identity as a family that is both a part of and apart from the Duggar history. George Augustine's name blends very well with the larger fabric of the Seewald children's names while simultaneously signaling a minor change. Perhaps their most audacious naming decision was Spurgeon, their first son, whose unique pronunciation and historical specificity shocked even some devoted followers. Named for the well-known preacher Charles Spurgeon, that choice made it clear to the world that Jessa and Ben would not be afraid to make theologically motivated but unorthodox decisions. Henry, their second child, counterbalanced that with a more conventional and generally recognized name, indicating that the couple also valued the familiarity of the situation, while Fern leaned even further toward simplicity inspired by nature. Their daughter Ivy exuded vintage charm and a botanical flair.